All right. So, because I like to punish myself, I decided to extend the range of values that I can display on this touchscreen display. So what I've done is I've added a pressure transducer to the oil pressure port on the motor. So now it allows me to see oil pressure. So what I wanted to do is create the CAN bus message from the ECU to the dash module to then send over serial data to the display to display the oil pressure. So just like I was doing before with manifold pressure and engine RPM, all that stuff from previous, I wanted to expand that a little bit more. So here's what I've done. So this is on the 4D Systems Display IDE. So you can see I've gone and added RPM, coolant, battery volts, oil pressure, AFR, and mile per hour. So the idea is you can press over this fuel, trans, engine, or car, and what that will do is pull up an additional data, right? So I also have a fuel pressure sensor because I'm running closed loop fuel pressure control. I have a fuel temp sensor so I can see that. I can see the manifold pressure so I can compare manifold pressure to fuel pressure, and I should still end up with, say, 40 pounds of injector pressure, right? So then I can also see fuel pump duty, since the CAN bus widget I made in the back of the car is spitting out fuel pump duty cycle, along with the amount of current that is going through the pump to make it work, and the actual 12-bit value the ECU is sending to the back of the car to drive the fuel pump. So I can now see that. And then also if you go to, say, engine, I added barometric pressure. You can see manifold pressure, so you can see the difference between the two. I added the oil pressure in there also, so coolant, manifold air temp, and ignition timing. So that's going to be a fun one to see. So now the idea is if you hit the home button, it will always bring you back to the home screen. So what's going to happen though is I also included transmission. Transmission's kind of messy. Throttle position, got to up threshold, down threshold, torque converter lock threshold, and the torque converter PWM value, and the temperature of the transmission too, long mile per hour, and the current gear we're in. So now you can either go back to home or click on the manual mode. Let me pull up that page. It's the same as before. You're going to have the flash value to let me know that it's actually working. The gear, you have an up and down button. So now if you press on this, it should change color to bright green. And then if you hit the torque converter lockup when you're in any gear other than first, this will light up and this will light up. So these are both referencing different values coming back from the computer. One's specifically looking at the flash value in a register somewhere, and the other one's specifically looking at an output PC array value, transmission status value will make. So they should be independent, but they should both turn on at the same time. So that's kind of the plan. So I'm still chasing down. I need to modify. So this, oh man, if you can even see it. So this is the CAN, ms3 can.c. So I went ahead and changed up a bunch of stuff, added the sensors to this is the broadcast for the dash messages. That's what I'm going to use as the dash broadcast now. Because it already has a bunch of these values built in. Oh, no, that's the size it goes. So you can see manifold pressure, RPM, coolant, TPS. And if we come down, I added in, so AFR, battery volt, gear, transmission status, manifold temperature, ignition timing, and then I added in these 4 sensors here, fuel temp, trans temp, fuel pressure, and oil pressure. Those are all analog ins to the ECU. I was going to do some other tricky stuff down here with the fuel pump stuff, but it dawned on me, it's like, why am I transmitting the same CAN bus message that's already being transmitted? So I can just intercept those and decode those messages just as if the fuel pump driver in the back or the ECU up front is getting them. So that freed up a whole bunch of spaces there. And then we still have front and rear wheel speed, the PWM for the torque converter, downshift and upshift thresholds, and torque converter lock threshold is now going to be included in there. So maybe not tomorrow, maybe a couple days from now, I will, yeah, a couple days from now, I will go out and actually load this into the car and see if I can get everything to work. Because I also have to change the code on the dash module that's receiving all these CAN bus messages. So I already have that code banged out, I hope, and double checking some things, but it should work. All right, before I head off to work, here's the home screen.